He's currently at the Sabarmati Ashram in Gujarat, and those are the images that we're getting to you of the UK Prime Minister entering the Gandhi Ashram. This is his first stop in a packed day one of his two-day trip in India. He landed early this morning in Ahmedabad. You see, in fact, the UK Prime Minister making his way in, getting details at the entrance from the people there, also paying his respects at the portrait of Mahatma Gandhi. He's seen there also placing a garland along with several other staff members of the Sabarmati Ashram. Symbolic really that the UK Prime Minister started off his visit there at the Sabarmati Ashram. Today he's going to be in Gujarat, the first British Prime Minister, interestingly, to visit Gujarat. And the significance, of course, is there for all to see, considering this is the home state of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Later this evening, he is going to be making his way to the national capital, and that's when tomorrow is when he'll be meeting with Prime Minister Narendra Modi. We're also getting you details of the importance of this particular visit of the British Prime Minister there to, in fact, the Sabarmati Ashram. The gifts for the UK Prime Minister include 2 books as well as a charkha. This will be handed over to him. You see those images on your screens on the right there. These are the books that will be handed over to the UK Prime Minister as a gift from the Sabarmati Ashram authorities, along with a model of the charkha there. So this will be handed to him after he finishes his tour of the ashram. Now, beyond this, a lot more that's lined up, but many takeaways from Boris Johnson's visit, his first since he became the Prime Minister of the UK. He had 2 earlier scheduled visits to the country, which couldn't happen because of the pandemic. This time around, the timing of this meeting is very crucial, because it's happening at a time when we're seeing the war in Ukraine. And as far as India's diplomatic policy is concerned, the United Kingdom also, in all likelihood, is going to send out a message that they're on board, that they accept India's diplomatic stance. Now, he is, in fact, the UK Prime Minister, beyond this today, is going to be visiting a factory, university, several cultural sites in Gujarat. In fact, early this morning, when he touched down in Ahmedabad, he was accorded a grand welcome. A show of colour, a show of tradition, of culture, as well as people lined up along the roads, waving the British flag along with the Indian tricolour to welcome the UK Prime Minister. There could be a meeting also with business honcho Gautam Adani planned today in Gujarat, but there's no confirmation on that front. Tomorrow is when, of course, UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson will get right down to business with our Prime Minister Narendra Modi. So that meeting will be happening tomorrow. He's also going to be meeting with External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar. Now, there will be a number of landmark deals that are formally announced also in this visit by the UK Prime Minister. Now, there's going to be a lot of talk about trade, about ties between India and the United Kingdom. The focus will also be on the energy sector as well as defence. There's essentially, in the meeting between the Prime Ministers, between UK Prime Minister Johnson and Prime Minister Narendra Modi, there will be a review of the implementation of Roadmap 2030. There'll be a vision that will be laid out to intensify cooperation between the 2 countries across the full spectrum of bilateral ties. Let me take this across now to Paulami Saha, who's joining us live from outside the Sabarmati Ashram in Ahmedabad. Paulami, UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson is now in the Sabarmati Ashram. He is paying his tribute to Mahatma Gandhi. Interesting details emerging of the kind of gifts also that will be handed to him.
That's right. He, in fact, is inside the Sabarmati Ashram right now. That's right behind me. And he is expected to pay a 45-minute long visit to the ashram. That is as per the schedule. And after this, he will be heading straight for the helipad, from where he will be taking off from Halol, which is closer to Vadodara, which is, of course, like I've been saying, a manufacturing hub in the western part of India, and house to many multinational companies as well. Some very interesting gifts, as you pointed out, that will be given to Prime Minister Boris Johnson as he departs from Sabarmati Ashram. There are at least 2 books that will be given to him. One is the autobiography, the journey, the spiritual journey, it's called, of the spiritual pilgrimage, it's called. It is an autobiography by Madeline Slade, who was also known as Miraben, the adopted daughter of Mahatma Gandhi, who basically was a British citizen who then came and stayed with Mahatma Gandhi, became a disciple of his here in Sabarmati Ashram and worked with him throughout his time here at the ashram. Her autobiography will be gifted to Prime Minister Boris Johnson. Also, something which was unpublished but written by Mahatma Gandhi himself called A Guide to London. That is also one of the volumes which is going to be in fact gifted to Prime Minister Boris Johnson, and a model charkha will be gifted to Prime Minister Boris Johnson as well. So that is what we're learning right now. Also, what the British High Commission is confirming that during his trip, there will be some big ticket announcements, investment announcements and export deals to the tune of about £1 billion, which will be announced during Prime Minister Boris Johnson's maiden visit to India, and these will be in the sectors ranging from software engineering to health as well. Interestingly, also there will be a joint AI scholarship, artificial intelligence scholarship, which will be given to Indian students, partly funded by the British government's Shevening program and the Adani Group as well. So that confirms that there will be a meeting between Mr. Gautam Adani and the UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson. Obviously, there's been a lot of confusion because of no official itinerary which has been released as to whether he will be meeting Mr. Adani at the Adani complex itself or at the GIFT City, at Halol, at the JCB plant, which he will be visiting. It remains to be seen, but given, like I said, that one of the things that has been announced in the whole host of investments that has been announced by the British High Commission, that the British Prime Minister here will be signing with Indian businesses. He is, of course, bringing with him a delegation as well. One of those things, in fact, mentions that an AI scholarship, which will be partly funded for Indian students by the British government's Shevening program and the Adani Group, will also be announced.
That's expected today, and tomorrow is when, of course, the UK Prime Minister is going to be meeting with Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Interesting images that are emerging there from the Sabarmati Ashram. Not sure if you can see it, Paulami, but the UK Prime Minister is essentially trying his hand at spinning the charkha. This is an image that we're also very, very familiar with. Every time a world leader, visits Gujarat, visits the Sabarmati Ashram, there is that image of them attempting and trying their hand at the charkha. The UK Prime Minister being assisted by some volunteers there at the ashram as he tries to spin the charkha. He's being told how to do it. He's taking a tour of the entire ashram, and remember that he's also going to be getting a small model of the charkha that he's seen spinning there. He seems to have mastered it with the help of those volunteers. This is from the Sabarmati Ashram that we're getting you these live images. And fittingly there, Paulami, he started off his visit with the first stop being at the Gandhi Ashram, at the Sabarmati Ashram. Almost every world leader who's touched down in Gujarat earlier has always made it a point to visit this ashram, pay their tribute to Mahatma Gandhi as well. But let's focus on day 2 also of the UK Prime Minister's visit to India. Tomorrow in the national capital, the focus, the talk will all be about his meeting with Prime Minister Modi.
Oh, absolutely. The focus tomorrow will be the bilateral talks that the UK Prime Minister has with Prime Minister Modi. He will be, of course, accorded a ceremonial welcome earlier in the morning at the Rashtrapati Bhavan, where he will be meeting with President Ramnath Kovind as well. And then there will be a call-on by S. Jaishankar, External Affairs Minister, which he will be paid at the High Commissioner's house and residence in Chanakyapuri in Delhi before the Prime Minister proceeds towards Hyderabad House, where he will be greeted by Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi as well. And those bilateral talks that he will be having are going to be extremely crucial because of, in terms of trade, in terms of defense, in terms of strategic partnership as well. The UK, in terms of, telling the Indian press about what exactly this visit possibly means for the British, for Britain, they've basically been saying and they've been stressing on the Indo-Pacific tilt, and that is basically they do realize and the rise of India and its dominance in the Indo-Pacific region, especially with the Quad that India has in fact formed with the United States, with Australia and Japan. This is going to be extremely crucial in India's role that it plays in the Indo-Pacific, and that's somewhere that the United Kingdom wants India to, of course, work in collaboration with Britain as well. So that is going to be extremely important and strategic. There will be some big ticket announcements that will be made in terms of investments as well, but most of which will come in terms of those announcements. They'll come today itself from Gujarat itself, because much of the Indian diaspora that is currently in the United Kingdom is from Gujarat. Big investors in the United Kingdom are from the state of Gujarat, and hence the British Prime Minister is visiting Gujarat as well. But focusing on New Delhi, which is of course his meeting tomorrow at Hyderabad House with Prime Minister Narendra Modi again. Indo-Pacific, Ukraine, it will feature in the conversations. It is something that the British High Commission has in fact told us about, that yes, issues of geopolitical interest, something that in fact is of global significance right now, will be taken up. But also very significantly, what has been told is that just like a UK Foreign Secretary who visited just a few weeks ago, Elizabeth Truss, who visited India, she said when asked about India's decision to continue to import oil and gas from Russia, how does the UK view that, given that UK is supporting Ukraine during this war and is of course supplying it with military equipment, imposing sanctions on Russia and Russian oligarchs as well. She said, and it has been reiterated by the Downing Street spokesperson as well, ahead of Prime Minister Boris Johnson's visit, is that the UK will not lecture India about what position to take. It does realize that independent nations have their independent foreign policy, and it respects that, and is only going to try and hear the Indian perspective when it has a conversation with Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. So an extremely significant visit over there. Also in terms of FTA, something that was initiated earlier this year, we're working on the third and final round of FTA talks is to happen next week. So the Prime Minister's visit right now, Boris Johnson's visit right now, is extremely significant because an ambitious deadline for the signing of that negotiation, for the signing of that free trade agreement has been set, and that is end of this year. So both nations are going to try and see how much of pen pushing they can do during this visit itself in order to ensure that much of the difficult areas have been sorted out and negotiated and ironed out as Boris Johnson, of course, visits India on this two-day visit. It is very significant to see the kind of place that the UK puts India in terms of geopolitics, in terms of global world politics. The fact that the UK, in fact, when it last year held the G7 meeting in Carbis Bay in Cornwall, it had invited India as a guest country. India is not a member nation, but it had invited India as a guest country. Of course, Prime Minister Modi, because of the COVID situation back home, couldn't visit Cornwall, but he did virtually address that summit. And that is how significant the UK thinks that India's position is in terms of current geopolitics, and wants India on its side as well. So it is going to be extremely significant to see what that joint press statement in fact holds tomorrow, when of course it is announced at the end of that bilateral engagement tomorrow at Hyderabad House, Akshita.
And the wording that will be used by the United Kingdom with regards to India's diplomatic policy, with regards to our stand on the Ukraine war, is something that we will be tracking very, very closely. It'll be interesting to watch out for. You have now the UK Prime Minister signing the visitor's book, writing a small message. Perhaps in a few moments from now we'll be able to get details of exactly what the UK Prime Minister has had to say there. He's signing the visitor's book and will be penning a small message about what Gandhi's beliefs, about what Mahatma Gandhi's ideals mean for him. And you can see there that the memorabilia that we've been referring to, the gifts for the UK Prime Minister, are now being handed over. These are two books. One is an autobiography by Mahatma Gandhi, which is being handed over to him. You can see the UK Prime Minister taking a keen interest in what's being given to him there, going through the contents of the book as people around him also explain the significance of this gift. He's also going to be handed a model of the charkha that he was spinning just a few moments ago as a gift from the officials there at the Sabarmati Ashram. Two books in all that will be given to him, and I'll also just get you those details of exactly what these books are. Two of them, in fact. One is Gandhiji in Ahmedabad. The second book is called Guide to London. Both of these are going to be handed over, are being handed over as we speak there to the UK Prime Minister. Besides that, he's also going to be given a model of the charkha that he was spinning earlier. So those gifts are being handed to him. You see also the second book that's being given to him. It's nice to see also the UK Prime Minister indulging, really looking into what these gifts are, the significance of it, the meaning of it for him as well. So each of these books have been handpicked for the UK Prime Minister as he's made his visit to Gujarat for the very first time, to India for the very first time. And it's also hugely significant because this is the first time that a British Prime Minister is actually visiting the state of Gujarat, which is why the authorities there have pulled all stops to ensure that it was a grand welcome for the UK Prime Minister and that personalised gifts have been handed to the UK Prime Minister. And there you have the model of the charkha being handed to him. The UK Prime Minister there also posing for the cameras with that model as it's handed over to him. So that perhaps concludes also the visit by the UK Prime Minister, by Prime Minister Johnson to the Sabarmati Ashram. But Paulami, you know, we've been talking about the significance of this visit, the big takeaways. You have the UK Prime Minister there getting all of the memorabilia from the authorities at the Sabarmati Ashram. If you could again, and I know we've spoken about this already, but considering the images that are coming in, if you could again talk about the significance of each of these hand-picked gifts.
That's right. It's extremely significant and obviously well thought through, the gifts that are being handed over to British Prime Minister Boris Johnson now as he, of course, finishes his tour of Gandhi Ashram. We believe that he has been given a book called Guide to London, unpublished so far by Mahatma Gandhi itself, where possibly the Mahatma has spoken about his experiences, about the British and their presence here, as well as his interactions with the establishment at the time, as well as he fought for India's independence from British rule at the time as well. Guide to London is one of the books that is being handed over to the British Prime Minister. What we also believe is an autobiography which is being handed over, an autobiography by Madeline Slade, also known as Maiden, which is being handed over to British Prime Minister Boris Johnson. Maiden, like I said, is was a British national who, in fact, was so influenced by Gandhiji's thought processes, and this was pre-independence and India's freedom struggle, that she decided, in fact, to give up her luxurious life. She was, in fact, born into a born into high society in Britain, but she decided to, in fact, give all of it up in order to adopt an ascetic life, a life of spirituality, and, in fact, come down to India and spend time with Gandhiji here at Sabarmati Ashram, become a disciple of his. In fact, many called her the adopted daughter of Mahatma Gandhi as well. This is her autobiography, which is being handed over to the British Prime Minister. It's called The Spiritual Pilgrimage, where she, of course, talks about her journey in terms of leaving her life in Britain and coming down to India at a time that India was, she, if I am not wrong, came down in the 1920s itself. So just possibly 2 decades or 3 decades before India, in fact, gained its independence from the British struggle. So right in the peak of India's freedom movement is when she decided to, in fact, join India's movement of independence from Britain. So it's going to be extremely significant, obviously, what she's written over there as a British citizen who left Britain to join the Indian struggle here in India. So that book is being handed over, and of course, as we've been telling our viewers as well, a model charkha which is being handed over to the British Prime Minister. It is, of course, one of the biggest draws over here at Sabarmati Ashram. The charkha, the spinning wheel, which of course was used by Mahatma Gandhi in order to spin yarn, and that is something which is obviously one of the attractions as well, and that is something that the British Prime Minister, of course, sat down at and of course tried his hand at, and a model of the same is being handed over to the British Prime Minister. Extremely significant in the historical aspects of this. If you see a British Prime Minister here in Gujarat at Gandhiji's ashram for the first time, it has its own historical connotations as well. Gandhiji, of course, who struggled and successfully struggled at that in gaining, freedom from the Britain from Britain, and from ensuring that India, in fact, along with his colleagues and peers at the time, in fact, was able to gain independence from Britain. He, of course, epitomized India's freedom struggle along with other legendary freedom fighters as well. So the historical significance significance of this very moment, of course, is not lost on anyone as we see those images of a British Prime Minister inside Gandhi Ashram right now, accepting those gifts from members of the Gandhi Ashram, who, of course, in fact, run this trust right now, handing over those gifts to the British Prime Minister. Of course, like we were discussing earlier, Akshita, the choice of Gujarat is very, very significant. It is well thought out. The fact that this is a personal visit of the British Prime Minister. Remember that Britain is, struggling post-Brexit and is looking for big investments as well in order to create jobs in Britain and in order to ensure that industry doesn't exactly, die in Britain. And those are the vehicles coming in. I'll ask my camera person Pavan to, in fact, just keep on those shots right now, because the British Prime Minister is expected to shortly leave. That is his vehicle right now on our screens right now. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson currently leaving from the premises of Gandhi Ashram.
Okay.
Again, Akshita, because his official schedule has not been released, we believe that he will be heading straight for the helipad and then possibly proceeding towards Halol as well. But then again, we'll have to see if he goes to Shantigram, and that is where that meeting with Mr. Gautam Adani happens, or it happens in Halol. But a meeting is definitely on the cards again, because Britain is looking for those investments, that money to come in from India and Gujarat and the diaspora from Gujarat, of course, the biggest investors in the United Kingdom. So British Prime Minister, of course, here wooing more investments.
All right, we'll track all the updates that come in from Gujarat. For the moment, Paulami, thank you very much.